Hey, good afternoon. It's Saturday, July 2nd. Welcome to my channel, Everyday Talk 24/7. Really great to have you here. We're in the middle of the whole Independence Day celebration. And I want to bring another kind of a twist for us to think about this reason why we're celebrating. The thumbnail has fireworks, which we'd expect, but the title, maybe you're not expecting it. It says, Celebrate Your Vulnerability. The problem is, independence is pretty much a myth. We think we can craft all these things to make ourselves independent, whether we're as a country or a people or a county or a state or a family or individual. When reality, as God demonstrated to Nebuchadnezzar and so many other leaders over the course of history, God is the one who's in control. We're all vulnerable to him. Well, the Apostle Paul demonstrates this for us in a real live action scene, if you will, when he's in Athens and he has this occasion. He's waiting for Timothy and Silas to come to him so they can continue their work. And while he's waiting, he's wandering around debating in the marketplace in the square about the things of Christianity. And some really well-educated, well-placed philosophers, Stoics and Epicureanism, the guys that are straight-laced and the guys that are party crazy, they come to him and they get in a debate with him and they invite him to come on up to the big place, Mars Hill, the Areopagus, and have this debate with the leaders of the land, leaders of the intellectual community, if you will. And the description is here about them. He says, all these Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. They kind of arrived at the intellectual top of the food chain. They made their peace with the Romans. They could live as they wanted. And so the big deal was debate all the time about whatever they wanted. So they bring Paul into this mix for him to debate. And they challenge him. Tell us about these new ideas. These men who think that they are at the top of the intellectual world, who are comfortable, who can do nothing but debate and enjoy that debate, thinking pretty much we're there, we're superior, we've got it all wired. But Paul comes to them and says something quite different. He says, not what you worship, he's talking about what he believes, not what you worship is unknown. I'm going to proclaim this God to you. So he starts talking to these men who think that they have it down, who think that they are pretty much independent. And he tells them about how vulnerable they are. The God, this is the God he's going to proclaim to them, the God who made the world and everything in it is Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands, such as the place where they were. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. God doesn't need anything. That's different because all the Greek gods, they all wanted something. So he says then this God doesn't need anything because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. So what is Paul saying? You can talk all you want to, but this God that I'm telling you about is the very reason that you're taking your next breath. And he goes on. From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live. Huh? They think they're on top of it. They have all these gods. They're debating the likelihood of whether one's cool and one's not, what's wise and what's not, who are they going to believe, who are they going to follow. And Paul comes along and says, this God is not subject to any human requirements at all. As a matter of fact, he gives you your next breath, and he determines all the places where everybody on this planet is going to live. Paul's declaring to them not a God of independence, but a God of vulnerability, that we are vulnerable to this God. But rather than terror, he says, God did this so men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from each of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. For as some of your poets have said, we are his offspring. Paul is declaring this God of vulnerability to people who thought that they were on top of it, that they were independent. This Independence Day, let's not buy into the myth that we are independent of God. We may have gotten free from Britain. The Brits may dispute that, but we may have gotten free from Britain. But we're never free from God. Whether it's on the national scale, the international scale, local, or your own family, your own daily life, your walk, you and I are constantly vulnerable before God. We can either rail against that and be angry, or we can rejoice and celebrate our vulnerability. We can start living life the way God calls us to and be in sync with him. Be kind and gracious. Return good for evil. Live as if he matters. Live as if my next breath is coming from this God. It's not mine to decide. It's God's to decide. And he's determined all of that beforehand. That's what brings comfort. That's what brings peace. Don't get caught up with independence. It's a trap. Rather, celebrate your vulnerability and rejoice in the fact that you are vulnerable to the great loving God who sent his son to die for us. That's worth celebrating. Thanks so much for being here, and Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday, Independence Day.